Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. It's Neela Reese. So today we need to get into what exactly is Saturn, because you guys know that this channel is about Saturn returns. I'm going to be giving you guys a live update, going through everything that I am experiencing with mine, because mine is coming up very quickly. And I thought that it's very important for there to be some type of documentation of Saturn return happening as it's happening. So that is the whole point of this channel, is to give you guys some reference and literally watch someone as they go through the whole experience, right? But before we can even get into that, I think it's important that you know what Saturn is, what a Saturn return is, how to find this energy in your own birth chart. Once you know how to find the energy in your birth chart, then you'll be able to figure out what your Saturn return might look like for you. So I think that this is a very big, important step before we even move any further. And let's get into it. So if you aren't familiar with astrology, let me just say that this channel is very based on astrology. You're gonna need to know your birth sources out there. I use astro.com heavily. You can always just go on Google and say calculate natal chart or calculate birth chart to find all of that. But you don't need your time in order for you to even find out what your Saturn placement is. And you can even get most of your placements without your birth chart. Like you can kind of estimate what your moon would be. Would help you if you do just a little bit of research before. But the most important thing I think to focus on, that you'll need to know in order to enjoy this channel, is to know about Saturn. Saturn is a planet, and it has the longest orbit of all of the other visible planets. So Saturn takes about 29 years to return back to the place that it was when you were born. So that is essentially what your Saturn return is. It's when Saturn comes back to that very exact placement, meaning the sign and, inevitably the degree that it was in when you were born. And at that point, what happens is then you start to learn all of the lessons. You get a bunch of lessons associated with whatever your Saturn placement is during that time. Saturn in your birth chart is going to represent authority. It's going to represent structure and discipline. It represents the father in a lot of ways. They say, when you're looking at your birth chart, you can kind of see the relationship that you hide by. It's structure and it's discipline. And it basically can show the restrictions and the boundaries that you might encounter within the restrictions that you might have to abide by within your lifetime. And it gets really specific to you when you look at the sign placement, whatever sign Saturn is in, and then also when you look at what house. The house is going to show how it really, really pertains to you. The sign is important, but Saturn is a very slow moving planet. Again, it takes a long time to orbit around the sun. So you're going to share a sign placement with those in your generation. So anyone, like I said to y'all before, anyone born in 91, guess what? Saturn in Aquarius. So you are about to go through your Saturn return as well. So you would have a Saturn in Aquarius placement, but where that lands in your birth chart is going to be it's going to give a different flavor. So for me, and I'll of course get into this more as we move along, but Saturn is in Aquarius, but it's in my third house. The third house deals with communication. It deals with, it can say something like this, like a person with Saturn in the third house may have started speaking very late in life. That wasn't the case for me. I actually started talking kind of early, but I have restrictions within expressing myself. I hold a lot of the things I think and feel to myself within me. And, if you want to add in that Aquarius energy, it's because I think that my thoughts and my ideas are too eccentric or too rebellious to actually share with other people. I don't like to rock the boat a lot of the time. So that's something that I know is definitely going to come up in this Saturn return. And it's really going to show me and bring up areas where I need to speak up, and it might have to rock the boat. It might have to be a little different and might have to be an adversary sometimes. So it's just going to be important for you to know the signs, so you know the how. Like, you'll know how Saturn is going to put that restriction, and then the house placement is going to show you where. So I'll receive restriction Saturn in my communication third house in regards to communicating about something that may be different from other people, or in a way that may be different from other people. And that's where the Aquarius comes in. So we need Saturn because Saturn keeps it real, and Saturn creates that groundwork, that structure that we need in order for things to continue to go. Saturn's the boss. Saturn is the authority over our lives, and make sure that we're not out here like running rampant. When I think of Saturn, a really interesting quote that I like to think of, it's from a song by Kendrick. It's called Real, and he put in a clip from his father, I believe. Father's real is taking care of your responsibilities. Real is taking care of your family. Real is God. Those things that structure your life, those things that keep you on track and remind you of why you're doing something, so you don't get caught up in your emotions. You don't get caught up in your mind, emotions, the moon, mind, Mercury. You don't get caught up in your desires. It can help you in the long run. Saturn deals with time as well. So, and Saturn is also directly associated with karma. Recently people in the astro community have been talking about how if you are a child of Saturn, and a child of Saturn would be someone who has strong Saturn placements, someone who has placements in Capricorn or Aquarius, because Aquarius is traditionally ruled by Saturn. If you have placements in, and I would say personal planets in those signs, so Sun, Moon, maybe even Venus, ascendant, you're a child of Saturn. So they say that if someone does you wrong, they kind of get their karma for it immediately. You might find that. And the reasoning is because Saturn don't play about his children, and Saturn is here to bring that punishment. If you want to come with that heat, Saturn got the punishment for you. So, and then also vice versa. If you're a child of Saturn and you do something really messed up to other people, you get that karma very quickly as well, because Saturn is gonna, he's the father. He is going to govern and discipline his children. Y'all can't be out here running amok and causing havoc, because that's not what Saturn's about. He's about, reciprocity and consequences, and that's just what it is, right? I can identify with that because, I have a lot of people with prominent Saturn placements around me. So my parents, both of them have Capricorn moons. My mother is a Capricorn ascendant. I am very attracted to men with Capricorn placements. I've dated a bunch of Capricorn ascendants. I just like that. I don't know. It's the serious grumpiness that I tend to be attracted to, I think. And also they just have this protective feel. And also my North Node is in Capricorn. In Capricorn. And even down to my friends, my best friend, she has a lot of Saturn in her chart. She's definitely a child of Saturn. And also for me, my chart, I have a lot of Saturn oppositions to my personal planet. So we can kind of get into that. So Saturn is opposite my Venus, my Mars, and my Jupiter as well. And so any planets that are negatively aspected by Saturn, it's going to show you where you kind of need to slow down and avoid abusing this energy. So for example, my Saturn opposite Venus placement, that just shows me that Venus is about desire and pleasure and love and relationships and being cute and spending money, right? My Venus is also conjunct my Jupiter. And Jupiter is expansion. Anything that touches Jupiter makes it bigger. So that just goes to show you, like, I like luxury, I like pleasure, that it's like times 10 for me. But Saturn is opposite. So Saturn comes in and says, all right, that's cool, but tone that down. Saturn will create restrictions, so I can't get to those things that Venus represents. I can't get to them very easily. There's always an obstacle. I always got to work a little bit harder for it because he wants to make sure that there's a balance. It's like a seesaw. And also I realize aside from that is sometimes either go through phases where I'm like leaning more on the Venus side, where I'm doing as far as like dealing more with pleasure and beauty and luxury, or I'm leaning more on the Saturn side where I'm like restricting and I'm holding back and I'm not spending any money and I'm not really indulging in pleasure and I'm being really structured and like, I gotta make sure I get this done. I gotta make sure these things are correct, those types of things, not really myself. And I'll just go back and forth, and it's really up to me to find that balance. Once I find that balance, that's where my sweet spot will be. That's when I'll be the most happy. And also, so I was saying before about the Saturn energy around me and how I have Saturn energy in my chart to stay. Because I have a lot of Saturn oppositions and because I have a lot of Saturn energy around me, I've seen how Saturn is connected with karma and how the things that you do, the choices that you make, they catch up with you very quickly. That is something that has been prominent in my life. I've seen it happen to people around me, and I've also seen it happen in my life particularly. I end up paying for a lot of my actions very quickly. That seems to be a theme, and that's Saturn. That's pretty much what it is. So that's why it's going to be really interesting to see what goes on with the Saturn return, because it's going to be like Saturn is literally focusing on me. And so I'm excited to see and nervous as well. But if, let's say you have Saturn positively aspecting your placement. So let's say same placement, Saturn and Venus, maybe you have Saturn trine Venus, right? And so a trine is it's a harmonious aspect, and it represents your gifts. So essentially it's saying like you indulging in anything dealing with Venus, so like love, desire, money, self-worth, those types of things, that can bring you long-term success. Saturn's gonna help you know how to ground those things, know how to make those things make you money long-term, know how to make those things bring you pleasure and happiness for the long run, and it'll be structured and easy for you to make that a part. Like, it'll be easy for you to structure your life in regards to those things, with Saturn positively aspecting your Venus. So that's something to think about as well. And I think that the way I'm thinking about my Saturn return, and I think it would be helpful for everyone else, because Saturn can be a really kind of a scary planet, especially if you are a Gemini like me, a child of Mercury. I have a very playful spirit, and I like to play, So Saturn can be a little like intimidating because it's so serious. Like, my gosh, why so serious? Jeez. But the best part about Saturn, even though he's going to make you work and he's going to make you pay and see what your repercussions are, what your consequences are, like, he's going to put that shit right in the forefront for you. Even though it's going to happen, you're going to learn your lesson and you're not going to do it again. And the benefits of whatever you're doing is going to be long lasting. They're going to last you, and you won't have to, you'll learn your lesson. Maybe help you create something that can help you benefit, that you can benefit from over a lifetime. You know what I mean? So it's like, again, going back to the Saturn opposite Venus placement that I have, when I learn how to master that, that can bring me to a place where I can have, I can build generational wealth, because the benefits of understanding what Saturn is trying to teach me with that placement is going to bring me long-lasting results in the areas of Venus. Venus deals with money, so that's one way to think about it. And I think that with your Saturn return, we all got to grow up. We all have to become adults and being responsible, and listening to exactly what Kendrick's father was trying to say to him. And I mean, it makes sense. Father giving Saturnian lessons, those lessons being responsibility, family, God, those things that help keep you on the path, and, understanding you can't go too far left, you can't go too far right. Everything is absolute. So our Saturn return is just coming to say, okay, now's the time for you to really show that, you are going to be here on this earth and contribute in a way that's going to help those who are coming after you. And that's going to really help the collective here today, especially in a Saturn in Aquarius. I really feel that's about, like, what are you bringing to the table that's going to help the community now? To be responsible, you have to understand discipline. You got to have a good understanding of what it is Saturn is trying to teach us all. So I hope that this gave you a good understanding of Father Saturn, what he is trying to teach us all. It was a really good, thing for me too, to really dive into. And I wanted to make sure that I outline this because we're going to be talking about the different themes that I'm going through for my Saturn return. And, you can always go back to this episode and just and see how those things are lining up. But I wanted to make sure you guys had a base of who Saturn is and what it does. Definitely look up your own Saturn placements. See if you can see where it is in your birth chart and all of that. And once you get that information, put it in the comments below. Let me know. I love to hear where you all have Saturn, what sign, what house, if you know. If you are Saturn in Aquarius generation, gang, let me know. We are in this together. I am going to be, again, like I told you guys, I'm going to be candid about this experience of mine because I think it's important for somebody to document it. Like I said, I've always seen one-off Saturn returns, but nobody's ever taken you through the whole thing. So we're gonna go through this. It's gonna probably be a bumpy ride, but I'm down and I'm excited, and I hope you guys continue to come back. So until I see you again, be well. Bye-bye.